This one's pretty funny. He introduced his sister to him. He goes, "Hey, Dad, how are you?" He goes, "Hey, let me grab your sister. Do you know Dr. Patel?"
He wasn't letting it go.
All the time. Yeah, he doesn't let it go. Meanwhile, this guy's a multi-billionaire. He has a great business, but he's just not a doctor in his dad's
Let's
eyes.
talk about authenticity.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Liquid Lunch Project. I am Matthew R. Meehan alongside my partner, the Professor Luigi Rosabianca. What's on tap today, Lou?
Matt, you're going to love this week's episode. Today on the podcast, we have serial entrepreneur and author Betsy Pepine, and she's written a wonderful book called Breaking Boxes. And we know how much you love to break things, Matt. Breaking Boxes is the dismantling of the metaphorical boxes that bind us. Betsy, welcome to the podcast.
Oh, thank you. Happy to be here.
What are these boxes?
You know, boxes I define as the expectations, beliefs, and opinions of others, ourselves, our culture, organizations that we believe in or are in, families of origin. But it's these opinions, beliefs, and attitudes that we feel bound by at times. And it could be because, again, of our family of origin. It could be because of our race, our gender, our industry, our birth order. You know, that's a very common one. If you're alive, you have a birth order.
Or could it be that you're obligated to take over daddy's business?
Mm-hmm,
okay, I understand.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Matt, did you have a box? Like, did you have to join the NYPD or the FDNY when you were growing up? And did you break out of that?
No, we didn't have any of that. Not at all. Just don't go to jail was the box.
That's a good box. So
you know what? That's funny you said that. Like, I mentioned that in my book. So some boxes are even more obvious than others because they're defined by the uniforms, and prisoners are one of them, right? And the minute we see somebody in a prison uniform, we immediately we assume things that we did not assume prior to seeing them in the prison garb. And that's why they sometimes change when they go into the court, they change them into normal clothing because they don't want people to have these preconceived notions of someone who's dressed in the uniform. Same like with the priest uniform, you know, all these different uniforms, the police officer uniform, you have an immediate set of opinions and you know nothing about the person other than what they are wearing, but you're now put them in a box that may or may not serve them and be true to them.
Yeah, but isn't your book more about you breaking yourself out of your own box that you believe you're in because of what you were told to be done?
Yeah, that is one type of box. Yes, absolutely. And that was the one that was the biggest for me in my life. I came from a family where everybody and their brother is a physician. And it was just assumed that my sisters and I would be physicians, and they became physicians and they married physicians. And I was pre-med, but I knew I didn't want to be a physician. And not only was there the expectation to be one, if you didn't want to be one, the messaging was you were clearly less than. Like, who wouldn't want to be a physician? Like, it was held truly second to God in my home. And so that was the biggest box that I had to break out of and be comfortable with. And I broke out of it before I was comfortable with it. Now I'm comfortable not being in that.
How did that conversation go when you had to tell mom and dad that you were leaving pre-med?
It was awful. I mean, I was at Duke, and I remember I was in the hallway in the dorm, and there was dead silence on the other line. And they said, you know, Betsy, so my parents, I'm very, very blessed. My parents financed the Duke education, and they told me that I was going to be on my own, which I totally was fine with. I didn't need money. I wanted my freedom. But they were very disappointed. And,
you know, I find that when you come from when your parents are usually immigrants, you're usually forced into a box. You're right. You come here We worked hard. We suffered our whole life. You go to school, you do this. I had a friend, an Indian friend, and everybody in his family, just like you, they were all doctors. He was supposed to be a doctor.
Yeah.
So his dad was super mad at him. He left school just like you did, and he went out and he started a tech company. So he started the tech company. He was doing all right. His dad would always kind of look down on him, be condescending to him.
Mm-hmm.
So they did 10 million in revenue. And he's so excited. He goes home and he goes, Dad, I did $10 million. The dad goes, but are you a doctor yet? So that was what they believed and their family believed. So it's very common among first generation people here to go through that.
Yeah.
I feel there's a funny like Jewish bubula joke in here somewhere. So after Duke,
Mm-hmm.
I would imagine you probably lived in some other boxes, right? You seem like a very, very nice girl, and you probably had to be a doting wife and a good mom, but you're also a professional. How do you manage those several boxes, right? Because being a professional, you're in the real estate business. That's a 24/7 industry.
Yeah, that was interesting. When I remember when I was pregnant, so I was pregnant with my first daughter and I was working in the pharma industry. This was before I got into real estate. And then I took a 3-month maternity leave and I was flabbergasted by the mom group I had joined because I wanted my child to be socialized and how they were we were putting each other in boxes. Like and I didn't know this was a thing, but so if you had an epidural during your pregnancy, it was, well, you didn't really have a real birth. It was assisted. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I didn't know. And it's clearly there was a messaging that you couldn't hack it. You weren't strong enough. There was definitely, it was a slight if you needed an epidural versus if you did it naturally. Well, having had 2 children now, the pregnancies were both so different. One was so painful and one was not painful at all. So I understand why some people would need an epidural if you had a not a painful pregnancy, but like that was a box. And I was like, oh my gosh, I couldn't believe that. Or even just putting their own children in boxes where, mom's taking credit for children who are walking at 6 months and other children were walking at 9, 10, 12 months. And I was like, we're doing this. Well, we do it actually even before we're born when, fortunately, I'm not big into gender reveal parties because we're putting them in a box already. They're not even here yet. And we somehow,
you mean you're not dying to know what color the cream is on that muffin?
It's more than that. It's, they've done research and the adjectives that people use to describe the child once they know the gender, that's the only thing they know. The child's not even born yet. And there's a certain set of adjectives that are used to describe one versus another. And I'm like, we already are putting this child in a box and we don't even know, what this child's like. So anyway, but yeah. So then when I went back to work, I felt like I was in a box because the moms that stayed at home, I definitely felt like there was a message that I must not prioritize my children because I'm going back to work, which I didn't understand why you had to pick. Why couldn't you could be a good mother and you could be a good entrepreneur, right? I mean, to me, there was never, you didn't have to trade off. You could be really good at both. But some believe that if you go to work, you're not putting your family first. And that wasn't something that I had experienced until it happened to me. So there's boxes all through life. And, even as a business owner now, I put people in boxes myself, and you see that when you get a resume, and especially when people put pictures on a resume. Like, I don't recommend that, but people put pictures on a resume.
But Betsy, I would imagine it's almost primal. I mean, think about it. Like, it's tribal, right? These cave dwellers are cooler than those cave dwellers. And for you to belong in this cave, you have to somehow conform. And if you don't conform, well, get out of this cave, go into some other cave, right? Yeah. And we do this socioeconomically, we do it politically, we like you even do it with child rearing. But as an individual, how do you develop the inner fortitude and say, it's okay for me to step outside this cave and be anti-tribal, and maybe I want to homeschool my kids, or maybe I don't want an epidural, or maybe I want to be a real estate professional and not a doctor, right? So does that come from intestinal fortitude, or does it come from being a rebel?
Well, I mean, being a rebel helps because you have a thicker skin. I did not have a thick skin when I started my real estate career 21 years ago, and now I have a very thick skin. But that did take 2 decades to develop and experience. But I think it's also a questioning and curiosity mind, and really questioning why you're making the decisions you're making, and are they serving you, and exploring other alternatives. Like even in my business where I'm in real estate, the 99.9% of real estate agents are paid on commission. Well, we're interviewing lots of agents and I'm seeing great candidates, but they're coming right out of school. They have no money and they can't go straight commission. And I thought, gosh, that's a shame. We're missing a really talented pool of people because real estate has put the agent in this commission box. And I said, well, let's salary them. Why can't we salary them? That's a win-win. We cover their salary, give them a small commission, but they can live off the salary. That opens up to us a whole group of people that showed great potential. They just didn't have the nest egg to start 100% commission-based business. And so that's like changing the box, right? And it's unheard of. But we do it all the time. We have salaried agents and people love it because it gives them an opportunity to enter a field that they wouldn't have access to otherwise. So it's questioning, well, why are agents paid on commission? Is there another solution that might work as well?
You are the mother of 2 young women. Do you find, even though it is 2026, you like to think that there's a great deal of parity, but do you think that as young women entering the workforce, they are traditionally put into more boxes than a young man would be?
I mean, when I've read a lot of data that shows that still exists.
Okay.
Personally, I don't feel that. I mean, I do feel like my children have not personally felt that.
Well, they read your book.
In fact, well, yeah, and I mean they were raised that way. I mean, my children were raised very intentionally. To like even I mean, Maria was in kindergarten, not even kindergarten, preschool, and they had a graduation dance at preschool, and they were pairing. The letter came home and they said that the girls were supposed to wear dresses and the boys were supposed to wear suits, and they were pairing the kids up to walk into the dance together. And I went into the school. I said, no. I said, I can't do this. I cannot have my child who's in preschool being paired up with someone a classmate to walk into a dance together at this age. And so Maria walked in by herself and she had a great time. So I did raise them to question the norm. Like there's so many things we just do because it's always been done that way. But I did raise them that way. So I don't think that my children have experienced it as much as perhaps others.
Well, when you went to that school,
what do you suggest?
I'm curious if when she went to that school, then the school administrators put her into she's one of those parents box.
She was graduating every year. And I don't care. I mean, I don't know. I just don't. I don't. I do have thick skin in that way. I really don't let I try not to let other people's opinions of me deter me. I remember one time, and I mean, I'm not saying people question my parenting. They did because it was outside the norm. Like my one daughter, it was very difficult to discipline her. She didn't care about a lot of things, so you couldn't take things away from her because she didn't care. And to get her to, she was stealing someone's lunch or snacks because I didn't pack snacks in her lunch, and she kept stealing the child's lunch. And so she was in first or second grade, but what she did care about was clothing. So she came home one day and I had stripped her closet and she had three outfits. And she said, Mom, where are my clothes? And I said, oh, they're in timeout. And she's like, oh, when do I get them back? I said, in a month. And she said, Mom, I can't go to school with 3 outfits. I said, absolutely you can. And she had already known how to do the laundry. I said, you can wash them, on Wednesday. And I got a call from the school nurse saying that was inappropriate. And my children were bused to a school that it was across town, because that's where they put, in our area, they put the magnet schools in the worst schools to kind of diversify the population. And so I said, I can assure you there's other children in that school that are wearing 3 outfits a week. My child's going to wear 3 outfits a week, because it was the only thing my daughter cared about. So I wasn't afraid to go against what the norm was. And I did get flack for that. That's okay.
So for people that find themselves put in boxes by themselves or society, right?
Yeah.
How do you help them reclaim their identity and personal freedom?
I think, so for me, the first thing was, even you got to recognize you're in a box to get out of it. And that was the hardest thing for me. And the earliest sign is your body tells you before your mind tells you. And so if you get really good at listening to what your body is telling you, then you can move towards freeing yourself from boxes that no longer serve you. There's great books out there. The Body Keeps the Score. Brene Brown has a great book, Atlas of the Heart. There's a great app it's free. It's called How You Feel, and it will check in with you several times a day. And it starts training you to check in with yourself and how you feel. And so you can put in who you're with, what you're doing, what time of day it is. So you start seeing these trends and what environments are making you feel bad, what environments uplift you. So you start to get a sense of what is serving you and what is not serving you, and where the disconnect is. Then once you understand what those boxes are that are no longer serving you, I'm a big proponent of just breaking any problem down into small, manageable chunks, and then moving towards that which serves you on a daily basis. But the first step is obviously to figure out what box it is that's holding you back the most.
So let's go back to Matthew's Indian friend. What about the other side of the coin that said that box gave maybe an otherwise youthful, exuberant boy some structure and guidance because he was going to go, I believe it was medical school, right? And maybe if it wasn't for dad's mandate, maybe he'd be playing in a band. And at some point he pivoted to tech, but maybe the box serves some purpose.
I think boxes by nature do serve a good purpose. They are designed to protect, right? And I think the origin of the boxes probably came from us being hunter-gatherers, and we had to know who was safe and who was not safe very quickly. And so that was probably the first box. These are people, this is a threat and this is not a threat. And these are the safe people and these are not safe people. So I think they are designed, the intent is there to keep us safe. And what I remember about my parents, and same with probably your friend's parents, they were only doing it because they thought that's what was best for their child. They had come from struggle and they would only want the best for their child. So they only wanted the best for me. So understanding the motivation behind it, I think helps when you're trying to say, okay, I understand that, but that doesn't fit me. And even like if he had gone to play in a band, I think that's great. If that's what makes his heart sing, you don't have to be in a STEM, or you don't have to have a traditional job, especially nowadays, to be financially independent and be a good citizen of the world. I think we just track our children so narrowly that we don't give them options to explore. So I'm glad that your friend did deviate, right? So yeah. I'm glad he did. And
very successful.
The hardest part is not stepping out the box, but being okay.
His dad still wants him to be a doctor, though. He's still holding out.
I know. I mean, and that's the thing is, like, I do still feel, I have definitely felt demoted in the family.
There was actually another story that when he went to this one's pretty funny. He introduced his sister to him. He goes, "Hey, Dad, how are you?" He goes, "Hey, let me grab your sister. Do you know Dr. Patel?"
Yeah.
He wasn't letting it go.
All the time. Yeah, he doesn't let it go. Meanwhile, this guy's a multi-billionaire. He has a great business, but he's just not a doctor in his dad's
Let's
eyes.
talk about authenticity. Okay.
Mm.
Is there some lack of individuality or authenticity if I am John Smith III, who's carrying on great grandpa's business? Right? Can I still have room in life where I have a personality, where I'm the fourth John and I'm running a business that great granddaddy opened, and I'm still living in that same neighborhood? I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. I can make the argument that you were keeping tradition.
Yeah, and I think that's beautiful. If that's what, like, it's funny you said that, because I'm literally sitting in my grandmother's house. I live in my grandmother's house. My grandmother's long passed, but I bought her house because it brings me such a sense of tradition and culture and
They made you buy it,
memories.
even though you don't have, you're not an MD.
We actually sold it when she passed to a third party, and then I bought it from him.
Oh, okay, that's
wow.
how you got away with it.
Yes, yes, but so I think that's beautiful, as long as that's what that person wanted for their life. If they felt like they didn't have a choice and this was their, this had to be fulfilled in this way, and they feel that this isn't the true expression of themselves, I wouldn't say that's beautiful. But I do think family businesses are beautiful. You see that a lot in real estate, where the family gets in, and then the kids get in, and then the spouses get in, and it seems to all work, and it seems like they all want to do that. We also see a lot of, I think sadly, not so much in our culture, but in other cultures, we'll have clients who come and they buy a huge parcel, and it's the family compound, and everyone has their own 5 acres and their own little homestead, and all the kids, grow up with their grandparents, and it's just I find it beautiful to watch. And the elderly, when they get older, already have a built-in, security system. So I think that can be beautiful, as long as that serves everybody in that clan.
So that distinction
Betsy,
is
we want to be. Go on.
no. So that distinction is, if the second born or the third born grows up and wants to live elsewhere, as long as the parents don't give that mandate where you must stay in this box and allows for growth, then it could work.
Right, I think so.
So, Betsy, we want to be respectful of your time. Thank you so much for being here. Why don't you tell everybody where they can go out and find your book, or find you on the socials?
The book's on all the major online retailers, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, on my website. And the course is on I have a free, it's not a free course. I have a free workshop on my website, and then you can buy a course if you're interested in exploring further. I'm also on all the social channels, just at Betsy Pepine. So except for TikTok, I'm at Gainesville Realtor, but otherwise it's just at Betsy Pepine.
Betsy, thank you so much. Everybody, that's a wrap. The Liquid Lunch Project. We'll catch you on the next episode.